Coming up on Tech News Today, Mozilla could make some serious bank from the Yahoo acquisition when it happens. Also, Apple is releasing its betas of macOS Sierra and iOS 10, but remember, it's still a beta. Keep that in mind. BlackPhone's bet on security is falling apart at the seams, and how injustice is being revealed in real time on services like Facebook Live. We'll talk all about that and a whole lot more next on Tech News Today.
This is Twit.
Bandwidth for Tech News Today is provided by CashFly at CACHEFLY.com.
This is Tech News Today, episode 1550, recorded Thursday, July 7th, 2016. This episode of Tech News Today is brought to you by Trunk Club. Get clothes that fit and look amazing without ever stepping into a store again. Trunk Club will help you create the wardrobe you've always dreamed of with your own personal stylist. Go to trunkclub.com/TNT and join Trunk Club today. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Tech News Today. This is the show where we talk about technology with people who are passionate about technology and, in some cases, talk about technology a whole heck of a lot all day, every day. I don't know if I talk about technology all day, every day, but I know you've been talking about it all day. Father Robert Ballecer is here. I'm Jason Howell. How you doing, sir?
I am good, and yes, I have been talking technology since the wee hours of the morning.
It's kind of your normal Thursday.
Yeah, that's what I do.
Cool. Well, it's awesome to have you here. Obviously, Twiet on the Twit network. Know-how. I think the story at the very end is super dialed into the know-how ethos.
A little maker DIY never hurt anybody.
Yeah, exactly. Especially
it gets the mind flowing.
Nothing hurts you.
No. I'm made out of what's adamantium.
So. I don't even know what that is, but it sounds painful. All right, so let's dive into some of the news stories for today. Who says it doesn't pay to be in the browser business? Talks and negotiations for the acquisition of Yahoo have been underway for a few months now. And while we still don't know who will end up with the company, we have some ideas. Kara Swisher at Recode knows that Mozilla, makers of the Firefox browser that you may have once used in the past, might walk away with more than $1 billion from that deal. A clause in the contract, apparently, is said to guarantee Mozilla yearly payments of $375 million through 2019 if the company decides it doesn't like the buyer, whoever that happens to be, and chooses to walk. Apparently, this stems from a deal made back in 2014 that put Yahoo in as the default search engine within the Firefox browser. Marissa Mayer added the clause during negotiations at the time, something she assumed would never actually happen, of course, because I don't know that you make a deal like that if you think there's the possibility that it might actually happen. But, times are changing. Kind of a big deal, potentially. More than $1 billion.
This sort of thing it's very typical in corporate negotiations. You'll always find sort of the escape clause or the suicide pill, something that is a really strong encouragement not to breach the contract. In this particular case, this is something from, not just from this Yahoo, but not from the Yahoo that existed before the Yahoo we have right now.
Right.
So it's interesting to see it coming back, see old strategic decisions start to maybe earn them a little bit of cash.
Yeah, a lot of bit of cash, I think, in this case. So current bidders right now, and it's very, very late stages. I think sometime by the middle, I think in 10 days or something, the supposed cutoff for the final negotiations is happening for the final bids. But current bidders in the third round right now include Verizon, Quicken Loans, and TPG, which is a private equity firm, and I think a few other private equity firms are still in the discussions. None of those, from what it seems, are very committed to search. And that's a really big, obviously, that's a huge, deal of importance for a company like Mozilla, integrating with its browser, all that kind of stuff. So really their destiny as far as this deal is concerned is totally in their hands. It kind of sounds like, based on what we know about who might end up with Yahoo, this might actually happen.
It probably is going to happen because if you think about it, there is no room, not just a little room, but there is no room for an up-and-comer in search. That's done. That belongs to Google. A little bit belongs to Microsoft. They've actually been increasing their share. But the market is so crowded and the margins are so thin right now that these companies are saying that's not something we want to get into, especially if it's not something we've already done. It's not already in our skill set. We don't want to acquire a company to then be burdened down by this thing that we don't do well. I mean, if you look at those companies, Verizon, Quicken, TPG, none of them know anything about search. None of them want to know anything about search. And that kind of does beg the question of, if this deal falls through with these buyers, who is left? Microsoft's not going to do it. They tried to offer it way back, and then they realized they were lucky that they got out of this deal. And there's not a whole lot of suitors for Yahoo as a company unless you want to break it up.
Yeah, which is a very, very likely possibility as well. And also, who wants to take over a company like Yahoo when you've got $1 billion kind of loss at stake right out the door? Right when the deal is done. Goodbye, lots of money.
Yeah. You know, we didn't want that billion. Here you go. Just take it with
we're already sleeping in beds of money. It's okay. Mayer believed that an aggressive deal was needed to get back market share, so that's part of the reason why she negotiated this. It just seems like one thing after another in this thing going on with Yahoo that just. I don't know. It's a snowball at this point, and I feel very bad for her.
Yes, you do, but at the same time, this is a direct consequence of Yahoo. For how many years was it that they held on to their shares of was it Alibaba? And that's what was propping up the value of the company.
Yes.
And then when they split that and they made its own thing, people started realizing, not only is Yahoo a bad value, it can be a negative value. Like, if you acquire Yahoo, you immediately lose money and owe stuff.
Sure.
And they've done so poorly with protecting the properties that they have bought over the years or acquired over the years that there's no value left.
Right. Yep.
And that actually kind of makes me sad.
I know. So those were the days. Yahoo. Well, moving into the Apple world, the upcoming macOS update, dubbed Sierra, is being made available today in the form of a public beta for those adventurous souls out there. I'm sure some of you are watching or listening. And iOS users clamoring for iOS 10 can get in on the beta action as well by heading over to Apple's beta software program site. You register there, then you get information on how to kind of fire it off and get started. But don't do it so fast, because Jason Snell actually advises the macOS beta be installed only on, let's say, a secondary Mac or a separate partition. In other words, you don't want to put it on the device that you rely on every day. And the same goes for iOS. The iOS beta shouldn't be used on devices that you are relying upon in your daily use, so not your daily driver, if you want to test it out. But
well, isn't that a no-brainer?
That's just kind of the way it is with betas.
Well, at some point, we got okay with using beta software, beta services in production. And I think, Google was the one that led that way. Everything in Google was beta for a decade before they finally said, okay, I guess Google Mail is ready to go.
But it's not like they gave you the choice. It was like, we've got Gmail, and it's in beta. If you want to use Gmail, you've got to be okay with beta. It wasn't like, oh, and you can do this new version. I mean, now they do that. There's a lot of public beta, opportunities with Android, of course, and with apps through the Android store, just as a couple of examples. But it used to just kind of be built into their product kind of strategy.
Jason, I'm a Windows guy. I have iOS and OS 10 devices, but they're not my primary. I use them in the lab when I need to experiment with them. What do they get with the new beta? I mean, is there a compelling reason for me to move my MacBook to OS 10 beta?
I think one of the key points that they're touting is Siri on the desktop, and apparently I thought this was kind of interesting. The way that you pull up Siri on the desktop is Command space, but then you hold it down. And I always use Command space because I'm addicted to Spotlight search, and I use that all the time to kind of get to my apps and everything like this. So it's kind of like they're taking that function and giving you a little bit of, just hold on it a little bit longer and you'll get the new thing, which is kind of a little confusing. Like I get it that Siri on the desktop makes sense for Apple to kind of, reach more people with Siri and kind of broaden out its functionality and everything. But there are some things that Spotlight and Siri kind of do similarly. So I could imagine as a user that being kind of a strange, question to ask yourself, one or the other.
Do you think Siri on the desktop is just a response to Microsoft with its Cortana?
Yeah, I think so.
Google with OK Google.
For sure.
Google Now.
They're all kind of parroting each other as far as the just the fact that there are digital assistants on each platform, and then where and how you get to those and what they're even useful for. I mean, it made sense that Siri was going to come to the desktop eventually. they're kind of all working in that direction. So kind of knew it was going to happen. They would also have the ability, I mean, there are a lot of features, but a couple of them that stood out, that one, the ability to unlock your Mac if you're wearing your Apple Watch. So instead, you know, I mean,
okay.
yeah, I don't know.
Yay.
Am I going to be jumping on the beta bandwagon? No, I will not be, but I have different reasons for that. You know, doing so, if you have certain software products, they might not be cleared for the beta. They probably are not, in fact. So like I use Pro Tools for audio production, and pretty much the standard thinking with Pro Tools is never upgrade to the current version of the OS, period, because it's always going to work best on the previous version of the OS. So that's going to keep me away from the beta for sure.
It's interesting to see how the beta process has changed over the years, because when I first started doing this kind of testing, you know, back in the 80s, beta was always a very small group. It was a very closed group because it was developers, it was system integrators. There's always people who could test all the different variations that you might get, but they didn't want to release a beta out to the general public because it's beta. And now it's sort of like, oh yeah, just get it out there. We'll test it. We'll get our metric points from the people who crash and who have software that's not compatible. Which I'm not saying that's a bad way to do it, but it's a very different way of proceeding.
It is. And I think, you know, part of that is from the user's perspective, people just like to be, I mean, some people just like to be on the cutting edge, whether they're doing it because they have a vested interest, say they're a developer or whatever, and it makes sense for them to get in early so that they make sure that their apps or their software works properly or whatever. That's kind of, you know, a big reason why betas exist to begin with, for that kind of cross-compatibility check. But just some people just like to be on the cutting edge.
It's bragging rights.
Yeah, bragging rights.
It's like, oh, you got the latest iPhone? Yeah, well, I have the iPhone with the beta software.
You want to see the new feature? Here, let me show. Oh, it just crashed. I'm sorry. Here, hold on. I can get the new feature. Hold on.
But it's beta,
hold on.
so it's okay.
Yeah,
it's okay.
Right.
Yeah,
I'm on the beta, so you'll excuse me.
It just deleted all the pictures of my daughter's birthday party. But you know what? It's beta.
It locked me out of Google accounts forever. But whatever.
No.
That was not a beta feature. Two-factor authentication, not a beta feature. That was a beta Jason thinking he knew something about two-factor authentication feature. That's what that was.
No, you know what? That was a beta problem, because that software should not allow you to lock it. It should know you were going from one Google product to another Google product. It should have said, wait a minute. If you do this, we're in a catch-22. Are you sure you want to do this?
Maybe not a good idea.
No.
Avast, one of the big names in antivirus, announced today that it is working to acquire, rival antivirus software maker AVG in a deal that will total around $1.3 billion. Avast is looking to increase its scale and its coverage, as well as expand into emerging technologies, things like Internet of Things, which, you regularly hear about kind of the security implications of IoT.
Yeah. Oh, it's funny because people always ask me what antivirus I run on my Windows boxes, and the answer is I don't. I don't run any antivirus. And people think that's really, really stupid, but it's sort of like, well, I know what I'm doing. I know my machines. My machines are on a protected network. I never visited sites that I'm not supposed to visit. I follow all the data hygiene stuff that you're supposed to do. But at the same time, I would never give a computer to my mother or my father without an antivirus and without a firewall that has stateful protection, does IDS, IPS, intrusion detection, intrusion prevention. And yet, what I see out of this, if this acquisition goes through, is I see them trying to position themselves for the IoT market, the Internet of Things, because that's the next big profit center with decent margins. And right now, it is notoriously insecure. And a combined company like this that has a little hardware and software knowledge could be huge in IoT.
So these companies, a lot of what they do, and I've used them in the past, and then I stopped because they became more adware than anything else. Lots of pop-ups, and everything. And then over time, I think what you're talking about not using it, but you recommend it for others who are maybe less adept, is it's kind of like computer environment common sense. At a certain point, you just know how to use the device that you're using smarter to hopefully avoid these things, which is not 100% foolproof. But in the case of these antivirus companies, a lot of what they've been doing has been customer facing, has been install our suite, install our software, that sort of stuff. How does that work with IoT? Is it then that they're working with vendors who are creating the hardware in order to protect and lock it down in that regard?
That's supposed to be how it works. So at the last two CESs, and actually the last two Black Hats, there have been speakers from either the FTC or the FCC coming in and saying, look, we have to start thinking of security as a first part of the development of an IoT device. Unfortunately, most IoT devices are still in the phase of, hey, we put a drink machine on the internet. Not really sure why we did that, but isn't it cool? I mean,
Right.
you could see if there's a soda available, but those boxes they're beta boxes. They weren't designed to be on an open network with people trying to attack them. And so security is always added as an afterthought. If you could get one of these companies, like the Avast AVG conglomeration, to say, we will work with IoT developers to give them security software up front so that devices are protected before they go on the internet, before they figure out that they need security, that's a much better way of thinking about it. And so that's what I'm hoping to see. I have seen very few Internet of Things devices that I would actually put on the internet.
Because they're just wide open, like a wide open front door.
We call it the Internet of Insecure Things.
Yes, that's right. I've heard.
Why? No, don't do that.
I don't know if you would agree with me, but companies like Avast AVG, I would say, have had a soured reputation over the years, especially recently, because of people's experience with them and just being like, well, maybe they're a little less necessary. Maybe they're becoming a little too naggy in that regard. So maybe working behind the scenes with the vendors on something like this would actually be good for kind of their visibility. Well, I guess it would be Avast's visibility because they'd be, over AVG.
And again, this is human nature. All it takes is one bad experience where your antivirus starts nagging you for no reason, or it stops you from doing something you need to do, or it does a false positive and it detects something on your computer that it thinks is a virus where it's not malware. It's actually just software that you use. When that happens the first time and you figure out how to disable it, it never gets turned back on. And so, anything you can do to get past that part where you're not inconveniencing the user, they're just protected, that's what's going to make it a hit again. Because right now, I mean, again, I would never give a computer to someone who's not completely savvy with that antivirus, but most of the really computer savvy people I know don't run one.
What about Windows Defender? Is that a good? I mean, I know that protects kind of like the larger, the larger things out there. Is that a good alternative?
It's good because it's built in and it works, but it's not what I would consider frontline. On the enterprise, the hot new thing are security appliances that they're not looking for signatures, because signatures are kind of old. It's very difficult for you to try to protect a network just by looking at a particular bit of code that might be coming in. Instead, what they're doing is they're looking at how is something acting on the network. For example, do I have a computer that normally transmits a few bytes of data every couple of minutes, and suddenly it's transmitting gigabytes of data off the network? Well, I need a security appliance that can figure it out that that's not normal activity.
Got it.
And warn me. That's a better way of proceeding, and I think that's the way that we're heading with all of these antivirus companies.
All right. Well, speaking of security, remember the Black Phone? It's the line of privacy-focused Android devices created by Silent Circle that allowed users to do things like sandbox apps and environments, macro control of app permissions, even though that's now built into Android, and Silent Phone for encrypted calls and texts using Silent Circle's backend. Well, the company debuted its Black Phone and later the Black Phone 2 at a time when things like the Edward Snowden revelations were hitting super hard every day. They assumed it was the perfect time. Of course, it was a perfect storm of these things all coming together at the same time, and it turns out not so much. A court document from the company's fight with one of their former partners, Geeks Phone, over a currently disputed $5 million payment reveals that the company has laid off 15% of its team in the last 6 months. It's struggling to find out if it can continue to develop future models of the phone. There are actually more layoffs expected in the coming weeks. Revenue hundreds of millions of dollars below their forecast. They just kind of believed that there would be a demand for these like security-focused devices. Based on everything that we hear, people say it's really important to them, but it turns out not so much.
This is a really simple story. Privacy, security is incredibly important to people. It's not more important than how much money they have to pay for the device. And unfortunately, that's been the issue. Black Phone, the other one was the Crypto Phone, which was just a Samsung Galaxy S3, but it sold for $3,000 because of the specialized software that they installed on it, which is, okay. It'd be nice if I was willing to spend $3,000, but I'm not. In no way, shape, or form am I going to give you $3,000 for a device that I'm probably going to have to replace next year or in 2 years. So you've got these companies that are built on a really good promise. I love the premise of giving me end-to-end encryption, of making sure that everything on the phone is full disk encrypted, to make sure that the communications I have are encrypted better than I would get out of the standard encryption that I get from, say, a 3G, 4G tower. But you can't put a 100%, 200%, 1,000% cost increase without actually giving me hardware that's worth it.
Right.
And that is unfortunately the truth.
Yeah, it's kind of a challenge. I've seen this, and outside of kind of security focused phones, but I've seen some of these designer phones that cost multiple thousands of dollars. Meanwhile, they're running Android, and no matter how you slice it, no matter how good the hardware is, it really just seems like a release of Android on a device. It's only going to last you a couple of years before you really start to notice its age and whatever. So paying more for a device, yes, you get those extra features, but that doesn't necessarily mean that's the only phone you're going to use for the next 5 years. It just doesn't seem to work that way. Right. For some people, they're able to figure it out, but for others, it doesn't.
Now, a Black Phone did do one thing right in that they were controlling the hardware. They went their own way. There was actually a story about mentioning the crypto phone. The crypto phone used a Samsung Galaxy S3, which uses a Qualcomm chipset inside of it for the full disk encryption. Unfortunately, we just figured out that there's a major exploit that you can do to get the key out of the hardware, a part of the hardware that was supposed to be completely independent from the operating system, and it's not. So in that particular case, even though you bought this $3,000 phone with this amazing software on it, you could bypass it with basically 5 minutes of internet searching. And that's always going to be the problem with one of these things, where I'm going to pay a lot of money, and then you're going to tell me that it's broken and I need to replace it. This last February at Mobile World Congress, we looked at a vendor that actually I think has the right approach. They didn't build a device. The device is not encrypted. What they built was a communications node that was encrypted end to end. So it was a small box that your phone connected to, and then everything from that box to another box on the other side would be encrypted.
Got it.
That's more usable because I can replace my phone without junking the encryption system. But even then, it was way, way, way too expensive. They were talking about $4,000, $5,000 per node.
Wow.
So do I want security? Yes. But am I willing to tolerate slightly worse security if it's going to cost me $4,000 less? Yeah, that's the route I'm going.
Yeah, and maybe over time, companies like Google, and it seems like they're more security focused. Obviously, this was a specialty phone that really locked things down in a number of different ways. But as we've seen, these companies all borrow the best features from all over, and security is a hot topic. So maybe they start building it into the core of Android, as they have in some ways, as they are in iOS and all that kind of stuff. And you start seeing those kind of out of the box anyways, so you don't have to pay much more for it at all, if at all. And finally, here's a quick one. If you have an Amazon Echo, but you don't consider Amazon's music service to be your go-to, and let's be honest, who does really? Okay, maybe you in the back, but that's about it. Amazon is pushing out an update that will allow you to set your default music streaming service for commands like play Prince or play Gangnam Style, so that it can be set to either Spotify or Pandora. Bummer for me. Well, I don't have an Echo, so I guess it's not that much of a bummer for me, but Google Play Music still not supported, but I'm totally not surprised as far as that's concerned.
I will say I am one of those few people who actually uses and enjoys the Amazon Music service.
Oh, so you were the one in the back.
I'm the one person. I'm the one person. But that's just,
I'm sure there are more. I'm sure there's more users.
There's more of us. But a couple of reasons. One, because it comes with my Prime subscription.
Right, exactly.
But secondly, because I order a lot of stuff for both my other job and for Know-How. And so I always take the longer shipping, and they give you $1 every time you do that. And so I have like $300 worth of credit that I can use at any given time. And
that's nice.
That's where I buy my music. But no, this is nice. I think what Amazon is starting to realize is, yeah, they can try to keep people in the ecosystem, but if they open it up a little bit and start allowing Alexa to be on non-Amazon devices and allow Amazon devices to start accessing non-Amazon services, they greatly increase the potential surface area that they can reach. So yeah, this is a good move. I'm actually going to try it when I get home. I do have an Amazon Echo that has been unpowered for months because I couldn't figure out one of the security things I wanted to do.
Are you saying that you broke your Echo?
I didn't break it. I just made it not work.
Okay, all right. Subtle difference.
Yeah.
Totally marginally related, only because I said the words Gangnam and then style. But Gangnam Style, by the way, has been viewed now a total, I guess a couple of days ago, it was reported 2.6 billion times. That is 34 decades of Gangnam Style.
Wow.
By the way.
Well, you know what? Let's
my
do a little
calculations.
something here to help that number out. Just really quickly. Alexa, play Gangnam Style. Let's just see.
There we go.
There
Oh,
we go.
man.
Sorry about that.
You got some haters. If you want to email us, he's on tomorrow, so you can send, you can tell us what you think about that. TNT@twit.tv. All right, up next, we'll chat with Charles Pulliam-Moore from Fusion about how live video services like Facebook Live are rapidly becoming the place where injustice is displayed for all to see in real time. But first, let's take a minute to thank Trunk Club. They're the sponsor of this episode. Just look out your window. You'll see summer's here. It's time to, kind of spice up your wardrobe. Summer essentials that you need, short sleeve button downs, lightweight blazers, swimwear, all that kind of stuff. Whether you're looking for beach formal attire or grown-up graphic tees, whatever it happens to be, Trunk Club is a shopping game changer for both men and women. With Trunk Club, you'll never have to step foot into a store for your clothing needs again. Plus, you get your very own personal stylist for free. All you have to do, you just go into their interface, you type in your measurements, you share your style, your spending preferences, all that kind of stuff to give them a sense of who you are. It's actually very easy to do, and they'll connect you with the right Trunk Club stylist. He or she will contact you by phone, by email, or messenger. I did a phone call. It was quick. It was like 15 minutes with Carolyn to understand your unique look and learn more about what you're looking for. Your stylist will select items from your trunk from over 80 top brands that they're tracking, that they're working with, and they're going to send you a preview of clothes online that they think is going to be a good fit. So then you just kind of go over that preview, you review your trunk, and then you let them know. You make the edits that you need to make. If there's something in there that you just know, like I don't wear a low-cut V-neck ever, which is the case for me, you tell them to remove it, and then you hear back and they say, well, we'll give you a slightly less low-cut V-neck, and you could try it out. Trust me. And you know what? She was right. It's shipped right to your door. You'll have 10 days to try on the clothes. Keep what you like. Send back the rest. It's really that easy. Trunk Club is not a subscription service, so keep that in mind. Shipping is always free in both directions. So you pay for what you keep, basically. Premium clothes, expert advice, no work. That's thanks to your very own personal stylist at Trunk Club. Trunk Club is backed by Nordstrom, which means they have the highest standards in quality and customer service. If you happen to live in Dallas, New York, Los Angeles, Chicago, or DC, you can stop by one of the Trunk Club clubhouses to work with your stylist in person for free. Make a statement at the next big event on your calendar with a look that's handpicked just for you and your style. You can get started today at trunkclub.com/TNT. Look and feel your best with clothes that fit you perfectly. That's trunkclub.com/TNT. And we thank Trunk Club for their support. All right, the internet is no stranger to the sharing of controversial video. But as new tools and new players come into the fold, the power of these tools is becoming a driving force for opening the public eye to injustice as it happens in real time. Joining us to talk all about this is Charles Pulliam-Moore, news writer at Fusion. How's it going, Charles?
I'm good. How are you, Jason?
I'm doing all right. It's great to get you here today. I think we had you on a couple of weeks ago, so we're having you on regularly, but I love it because you're super smart. Particularly, I think this is a very interesting and kind of a devastating story here. First of all, tell us a little bit about Philando Castile and what happened last night.
Right. So last night, not even 24 hours ago, Philando Castile and his girlfriend, Diamond Reynolds, were pulled over in what should have been a fairly routine traffic stop. Officers, this is in St. Anthony, Minnesota, pulled them over to let them know that they had a busted taillight, asked them if they knew that the taillight was broken. They both said no. When the police officer asked Castile for his license and registration, Castile made a point of letting the officer know that he was carrying a handgun, but that it was licensed. He let him know that he needed to reach into his back pocket to get his license and registration to show it to the officer. And apparently what happened, what we actually see on video is the police officer panicked and shot Castile in the arm. All the while, Reynolds is live streaming the entire exchange with her phone while their 4-year-old daughter is in the back seat. Within the next couple of hours, Castile was dead. He died of his injuries. Reynolds was brought in for questioning and held for a number of hours. And basically the entire internet sort of, its heart broke because, this is happening just hours after Alton Sterling was shot and killed by police down in Louisiana. Again, another instance of footage of the entire altercation being uploaded to the internet.
Yeah, I mean, the video it's heartbreaking to watch. Obviously, we're not going to show it on the show here, but you can find it. It's out there if you want to kind of see how the event transpired. It's like 10 minutes long. And then shortly after it hit, or at least a little while after it hit anyways, the video disappeared from Facebook. I think there were like 1 million views at that point. Exactly what happened there?
So like you said, about an hour after the initial video went up, all of a sudden it was pulled down from Ms. Reynolds' page. A number of news outlets, granted, this is all happening late at night. So there is a sizable audience that has been watching the video, but it hadn't actually gotten to the critical mass that it has in the hours since then. But of course, there's journalists who are up who are looking for these things. And we notice that the video goes down. People reach out to Facebook to inquire, what happened. And the explanation that we were all given was that there was a glitch of some sort. At some point, during the night, the video just disappeared from her page. The video was shortly thereafter put back up, and it raised a lot of questions as to the nature of this glitch. When we reached out to Facebook, they declined to comment exactly what happened. What kind of glitch was this? Typically when you have a glitch uploading something to Facebook, it's like something went wrong with the upload. Not like once the video has uploaded, it suddenly disappears altogether. And what a lot of people have been doing since then is reading into the specific language that Facebook provided to a lot of media outlets, asking what happened to the video. From the outside, it really does just look like Facebook pulled the video down, specifically because there have been other instances in which Facebook has pulled down content that it's been deemed inappropriate or offensive, or that has just been reported to their moderators by users.
Right, right. Now, obviously, it's not outside of Facebook's power to moderate the content, the video, that hits its service. They've made plenty of comments and made many actions on video content that involves terrorist actions, that sort of stuff. And I think the big question that's kind of built up around this is whether a company like Facebook is the right entity to decide what is worth staying and what goes. I don't know. What do you think about that, Father Robert?
Yeah, I mean, we're in weird waters here because you have a company that it's entertainment. Facebook is entertainment. It's a way for you to connect with friends and family, but with the addition of some new features, and now we're not just Facebook, we're talking about any company that allows for live video streaming, you go from being an entertainment source to a potential news source, a potential important news source. That can give you real time from the field video, audio, and tweets, whatever it might be. And then you have to start asking, okay, if I'm no longer just an entertainment company, do I have a responsibility that would normally be reserved for a news agency? And if I have that responsibility, what are the things that I must do in order to give that responsibility the resources it needs? This is something that Facebook and Twitter with Periscope and anybody else is going to have to figure out, because there will be more instances like this where we see very, very questionable things, violent things, and they can't just pull it because it's been flagged. Yeah. But I mean, it's still, I'm still kind of caught on the heartbreak because it is a very, very disturbing video.
Yeah.
It's interesting that you bring up Periscope because a lot of people have viewed Facebook Live as a direct competitor to Periscope. But one of the things that Twitter's made a point of doing is keeping Periscope's functionality distinct from Twitter, right? So that the experience that you get while you're on Periscope is very sort of cut and dry. You were using the service specifically so that you can see what is basically unedited raw footage directly from people, whereas Facebook has made the executive decision to make Facebook Live a part of the core Facebook experience. And it's like you said, Father Robert, people look to Facebook not just for news, but for entertainment and for laughs. And when you decide to bring something like live video streaming, into the heart of your product, where people, think like a lot of people think of Facebook as the front page of the internet, you have to sort of weigh whether or not it's worth exposing people to potentially violent, disturbing, or just like emotionally distressing content.
Is there, I mean, there's probably no easy way, but I mean, there's no doubt there's value. There's something good about the fact that like citizen journalism has gone from, let's say, news organizations holding the keys to whether a particular video that was, shot by someone who happened to witness something is shown to the public. It's gone from that into the hands of the people themselves to say, I feel that it's important to put this out there right now and to make sure people see it. And in the case of live, like there's no intermediary there, right? Like instead of me posting a recorded video, like I'm going live now and it's out there and it's going to be seen by somebody. So there's inherent, I think, good in that from a social justice standpoint. Is there a way for Facebook to take the good that comes from that and turn this into some sort of a positive for the bottom line as a business? Because there's also a lot of risk that I think for a company like Facebook, to kind of enter into those waters.
Legally, I don't know if we have the ability to do that yet, because companies like Facebook, like YouTube, like anyone that's going to offer you live streaming, they operate under a very strict set of rules that are set forth by the Telecommunications Act and by the DMCA that don't necessarily take into account that the content that might be going up could be socially important. It's always, well, if there's a copyright claim or if there's a flag, you can cover yourself by taking it down until you figure out whether or not that's true. Versus what citizen journalism should be, which is this is the raw, unedited video. There is no reason why this can't be up. It may offend sensibilities, but it's important that this is up.
Yeah. Fascinating. I don't know what more to say about this. Do you have any kind of final words on this, Charles? Because it's just heartbreaking on one hand, but then empowering that we're even talking about this, because I feel like incidents like this have happened repeatedly, and yet they don't get seen, they don't get known about. And if any good can come out of something like this, it's the fact that the tools have enabled people to kind of spread this information so that it doesn't hit the gatekeeper and not be seen. Do you have any kind of final thoughts along those lines?
I think that it's really important or just interesting to think about the ways in which the reason specifically that these videos are going up is because of how Facebook has become a central part of how so many people use the internet. I don't know that if Facebook had spun live video out into a separate product, if people would be as inclined to use it, if only for the fact that it's just as simple as you opening the Facebook app, which everyone does all the time, and there's just a new button there. If it was something like opening a separate application, who's to say whether or not Diamond Reynolds would have been able to capture this? She's spoken about how she did this as her phone was dying. To the question as to whether or not I think Facebook is in the right for having pulled down the content, for it being just so visceral to watch, I come from the school of thought that says that we are better off just for having the ability to see it. Sure. The psychic trauma that one might experience and seeing something like this autoplayed on their timeline is outweighed by the fact that if we didn't have access to it, there is no way that Diamond Reynolds, her family, all the journalists who have poured their time and energy into covering this, there's no way that anyone could challenge the very sort of non-committal, vague description of the event that the police department has put out. And I think that to that end, ultimately, the price that you pay for seeing something negative is ultimately worth paying.
Yeah. Charles, I've got a question. There is another aspect to this story, which is definitely technology related. And that is, and again, I'm not saying this is not a conspiracy, but her phone actually was confiscated by the police. And they knew she was recording. I don't think they knew that it was live broadcasting to Facebook.
That's a good point.
Which that's huge, because when you think about it, the difference between releasing a video a week or 2 weeks after an event and having the video go out right away, it's huge. And this could be one of those things where you were talking about features, the new Cop Stop app, where it just automatically starts broadcasting. So it's automatically connected, it's automatically pushing video and audio, so that even if something happens to the device, if it gets destroyed, if it gets stolen, if it gets confiscated, the evidence is up there.
It's already out there.
It's already in public record. Are we headed towards that? Will people just start recording every possible interaction they have with law enforcement?
I mean, I think it's interesting to look at. There's been a trend for the past couple of years of people who are crossing the border just having dash cams at the ready, just in case something goes wrong. Particularly when you're dealing with border patrol guards who don't actually have any power, but sort of feel as if they are entitled to be hostile and aggressive towards people. There's a very vibrant community of people who have uploaded just countless of videos of racist border patrol people being racist on camera. Right? That's great. If we could just backtrack to Alton Sterling, who shot in Louisiana, the two officers involved in that shooting are given 30 days before they are officially questioned, investigated about that shooting. That's 30 days in which the police department has time to get its stories together. Over the course of that month, who knows, just how much information is lost. But that being said, the video is out there. Everyone sort of sees a man being pinned down by two police officers and then shot point blank in the head. It makes it difficult or rather, one imagines that it will make it difficult to accept any story from the police department that does not gel with what is there on the footage. And I think that ultimately, that's a good thing. I think that live streaming really does represent like a paradigmatic shift away from, let me record my video and then stop the video. And then if my battery dies, if my battery dies, my phone is confiscated, it's gone. Now we're at a point where it's just out there. It's just live, which gets you into the space where you have to ask, well, who's hosting the video? In my ideal world, there needs to be a platform that just sort of becomes the default where people just upload things and they will know that it's just not going to go anywhere. It's just going to be there. Who knows? Maybe there's an idea there to be had.
Yeah, although the multiple kind of platform approach is not a bad thing either, because when you have everything going into one place, that makes it easier to know what, if your goal is to suppress or to target, you know where to go. It's just all in that one single place. At least now we have these multiple different avenues. And, what was it? Just a couple of weeks ago, C-SPAN,
Right.
Their stream goes down. They pull out their phones, and I think they tried Periscope, and then they did a little bit of Facebook Live, whatever works, to get it out there and make sure that your voice isn't completely lost in the process.
I will say that I live in San Francisco, and this is actually coming to a head in San Francisco because the police are trying to negotiate that their officers get to see any tape, any film before they make their statement. And people are saying, wait a minute, that's weird. Shouldn't we at least get a first reaction from them before they try to explain something that might not gel with their story? And I actually do support law enforcement. I have several members of my family who are police officers. But if these tragedies can do anything, I'm hoping that we'll tell our audience that no matter what city you live in, there is a policy of a police accountability. It's mandated. So find that. Find what the police are required to do, what they're required to disclose. And if you disagree with any of that, they have regular meetings about comments. I'm hoping that this is not one of these things where, this is horrible, this is a tragedy, those videos were terrible and they sparked emotions in us, and then we forget it in a week and we just go back to the default. Let this be the one where we start saying, okay, you know what? I want to support my police by holding them accountable, by making sure that the good officers are rewarded for doing their job well.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah. Yep. Well, thank you so much for joining us. As always, Charles Pulliam-Moore at Fusion. It's always a pleasure getting you on the show. Tell people where they can follow all of your work online.
You can find all of my work at Twitter. I am at Charles Pulliam. That's you can see it spelled down there. Just at Charles Pulliam. The tweets are prolific and great.
Excellent. Right on. Well, thanks again, Charles, and we'll talk to you soon.
So, thank you so much.
All right. Have a good night.
Bye.
All right. So last week, Megan and Scott Johnson discussed a story about how a red X on the Microsoft dialog box for installing the Windows 10 update was being changed after it was found to initiate the upgrade instead of closing the box, the way red X's normally work. John Dennis wrote in, a little behind on the show, he admits, but says the red X isn't the biggest issue here. John says, I believe the 15-minute warning is much worse. People deserve to be warned. It happened to me. My Windows 7 laptop started prompting me to upgrade to Windows 10 while displaying a 15-minute countdown. I caught it a couple of times, but I made the mistake of rebooting once and not returning for half an hour. Of course, I returned to the laptop only to see the familiar "do not turn off your computer" message as it was finishing the Windows 10 installation. I quickly reverted to Windows 7 because my attempt to upgrade my other Windows 8.1 laptop at an earlier date had resulted in several operating system issues that made that laptop unusable. John says this behavior is reprehensible, his words, on Microsoft's part, and hopes they will come to apologize for aggravation and time lost as a result. What say you, Windows user?
Not a chance. No way. I mean, they're still touting 350 million installs, which sounds great. But then you kind of have to cynically crook your head and ask, so how many of those installs just accidentally happened?
Well, yeah, you reboot and don't come back for a half an hour and, hey, we've given you a new operating system.
Or in my case, how many times has it happened to the same machine? My desktop here has been upgraded automatically to Windows 10 4 times. And, you know, because my schedule is weird, so I'm gone for 4 days at a time, and I come back, I'm like, oh, great, it's Windows 10, and no how's in a half hour. I have to uninstall this, otherwise it won't work.
I guess you just have to keep it powered down then.
I know, right?
Whenever you're not using it.
Disconnected from the internet, so it can't actually pull the files. But yeah, this is one of those things where I actually like Windows 10. I have it on a couple of my boxes, but there are some boxes that are running software that get broken by Windows 10, and it's almost like, hey, you know what, Microsoft, I'm a fan. I'm rooting for you. But stop doing this. I know which of my computers can go 10 and which can't. I don't need you to keep sneaking through the back door.
Yep. I knew you'd have some words on that. TNT's fan of the day is at Bile Cameron on Twitter, who says, Carolina sky, deck, flowering trees, Megan and Jason. Looks wonderful. And to that, I retort with my own picture with the Petaluma sky, front porch, rose bushes, and other assorted flowers, and Bile Cameron on my laptop, because this was me this morning working on the show. So there you go. Show us how you watch or listen to TNT. Seriously, what are you doing right now? I'm guessing you're taking your phone out of your pocket. You're launching the camera app. I'll give you some time to do that. Now you're snapping a picture. That's what you're doing right now. Then I'm guessing after all that you're posting it on Instagram, Google+, Twitter, or Facebook. You're using the hashtag HowIWatchTNT so that we will find it for tomorrow's show. At least I hope so. Burke just did it. You should do it too. Finally, at this year's Maker Faire in San Mateo, a company called DF Robot was showing off one of its devices. Father Robert, I have a good feeling you're going to like this. It's a Windows 10. Maybe you even saw it. It's a Windows 10 single board computer, kind of similar in shape to the Raspberry Pi. It's called the Latte Panda, and it's powered by USB. Includes Ethernet, USB 2 and 3 ports, HDMI video, which is limited to 1024 by 600 resolution, so a little bit lower resolution. Set of GPIO ports driven by the onboard Arduino. This is a full Windows 10 experience. And it has a quad-core Cherry Trail Atom processor, 2 or 4 gigs of memory, all sorts of, handles Arduino features, 20 GPIO connections for sensors and actuators, and I guess they're separate. Some of this I will admit I'm hoping that you will explain to me for a little bit of clarity. But basically, it keeps Windows and Arduino separate. And that means, it's basically a development platform and an Internet of Things device. You can, develop on the Windows side, push that over to the Arduino to control it, all that kind of stuff. What would you do with this?
Well, first thing is people need to know that when they talk about Windows 10 on one of these devices, it's not the Windows 10 that we were just talking about that automatically installs itself onto your desktop. This is Windows 10 Internet of Things. It's designed for very light clients. We actually saw a demonstration of a jet engine simulator / problem reporting device. What you get with Windows 10 functionality is the ability to connect to many more things in a far more secure way than the current Linux-based Raspberry Pi Internet of Things devices. So what could you do with it? Anything that we've been doing with an Arduino on Know-How, and we've been doing a lot of projects, will work on this. The only difference is that when I go to connect it to the internet, I'm not constantly worrying if it's going to leak itself all over the net.
Right. Now, so clarify this for me. Let's see. The author of this article is Simon Bison at ZDNet. He says you fire it up and you're presented with a full Windows experience, not the single app model of Windows 10 IoT Core.
No, yes and no. They're still slightly different. So you have to slim it down to run on this.
Got it.
Otherwise, it would be a ridiculously slow experience.
Yeah, probably so.
Yeah. So it has a GUI. They've added a GUI to this particular version, but it's still based on the modified stack.
All right.
Yeah. Otherwise, it would just basically be a really low-powered laptop, and no.
And I think it's kind of, man, I didn't write down the price. Now I'm looking for the price. Maybe it's not even listed here, but I thought I saw somewhere that it's not is super duper. You know, it's not like Raspberry Pi inexpensive. I think it's a little more than $100 or something. Can't find the price now, but I suppose take my word for it and then prove me wrong later by emailing us tnt@twit.tv. Maybe you'll get one of these for know-how.
Actually, I already asked for one. So
oh, okay, all right. So you were the right person to ask.
Yeah.
Excellent. Thanks to you, as always, for coming on. Father Robert Ballecer. You do a lot of things for Twit and also outside of Twit. What do you want to talk about?
You know what? On Know How, we just made an odor eater. So if you have kids,
I need one of those. I mean,
yeah, no, I mean, not for you, but if you have kids, if you have pets, if you live in an area that's damp and you might have mold or mildew, we created both a $60 device and a $20 device that you could just leave in the corner and it would just slowly suck all the tainted, odorous air into an activated carbon filter. So yeah, check that out. It's kind of fun.
More like an odor sucker than an odor eater.
Well, it's eating. It's eating.
I guess okay.
It's getting its eat on.
It's hungry. Kind of. Excellent. Well, that was kind of weird, but you're going to return tomorrow and do a little bit more tech news today, and I really appreciate it. It's always
it's my pleasure.
So much fun to have you on, so thank you for that. TNT records live every Monday through Friday at 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Eastern, 11 p.m. UTC at twit.tv/live. You can take part in the show by emailing us at tnt@twit.tv. You can leave us a short voicemail at 260-TNT-SHOW. You can find us on Twitter. We are at Tech News Today TV there. Of course, you can find all the ways to subscribe to our show at twit.tv/TNT. And if you want to tweet at me, I'm at Jason Howell. Thanks to our technical director. I thought it was Kara, but wait a minute, who's... Oh, okay.
It's like musical chairs back there.
There was some training going on earlier.
Kevin helped.
Okay, so Kevin's not there anymore. I did hear your little... I did hear your giggling, so I figured you were either still shadowing or sitting behind the decks. But anyways, Kara, thank you. Burke, thank you. And all the folks who help us produce the show every single day, thanks to you. And thanks to all of you for watching. And we'll see you all tomorrow. Bye, everyone. High five.